Item 1, apologies for absence.
In the event he's unable to join us, we have an apology from Councillor Lewis, sir.
Thank you very much. And item 2, declarations of interest. If anybody knows of any declarations at this stage. Councillor Munro.
Yes, I've got interest in DMNL on 10th of March, item 346B, which is the applicants by association, Mr. Ken Shield and Dr. A. Hibbert.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else? Okay, as usual, if you become aware of anything as we work our way through the agenda, please let it be known straight away. Item 3, minutes of council meetings. This is the meeting of the 4th of February, which have been distributed. Firstly, are you happy to confirm that the minutes are an accurate account of what took place?
Agreed.
Thank you. So the move and Alex, so they are proposed and seconded, and all in favour, please show.
Carried.
And then B, are there any matters arising not otherwise covered in the agenda? Councillor Parker.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to ask a question on minute 303 recommendation, resolution C, please, which requested the Development Management Committee to advise on the likely requirements for housing in Tavistock and the options for meeting the requirements. I know that the chair of the committee has written to West Devon, but I don't know what the response is. Now, this is becoming more urgent as time goes by. I've seen the notes to the DM committee from Mr. Swiss, and I've seen the transcript of the team's question and answer session between you, Mr. Mayor, and Mr. Baker. They both confirm a number of things, that the government has virtually trebled the housing requirements for West Devon, that West Devon doesn't have a 5-year housing land supply, and that every parish and town will be affected. However, they haven't done the work yet and don't know what the effects will be. That's the gist of what they've said. This includes Tavistock. So the summary is that West Devon admits that there will be pressure for additional housing. They just don't know how much. Now, why is it urgent to move this on? Because we're about to publish a neighbourhood plan out to public referendum, which tells people, and I quote, there is no real priority to allocate additional housing sites. Now, we can be fairly sure from what we've been told by West Devon officers in the past 2 or 3 weeks, that isn't true. And I, for one, don't like telling untruths to those who we represent. So the sooner that we can get a handle on this, about what is true, the better. Hence my question, Mr. Mayor, can you say what progress has been made on actioning Resolution C?
Councillor Smith, can you help us with that, please?
The situation we have at the moment is the changes are such, and they only happened in the last week, 10 days, is that West Devon aren't sure where they're going to be. All we know is that the allocation of houses is going to cover the complete area, and they have no idea where they are going to go to. So we haven't progressed anything as far as today. If we would like to, we were told to contact Jack Houselander, who will be the best possible thing, but no one seems to know what is happening there. If we want to take it forward, then we shall possibly talk to Councillor Ewings and ask her what the best way, but no one seems to understand exactly how it's going to affect everybody. That's where we are, or it's where I am anyway.
Okay. Am I right in thinking you've spoken to Councillor Mott? I know you were intending to. And what you've just told us, is that essentially the outcome of that conversation?
That essentially is the outcome, yes.
Yes, thank you.
2.5 weeks ago.
Thank you. Councillor Mrs Johnson.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I just wanted to get some clarification, because when we're talking about figures, that doesn't include the National Park, does it? So we're just talking about West Devon that isn't in the National Park. So that's scrunching it up quite a bit.
Anyone else for that? Yeah, Councillor Mann.
I just wanted to ask Councillor Parker where he thinks that we've said that there's no additional housing need in the neighbourhood plan, just the provision.
The quote I gave was that there is no real priority to allocate additional housing sites, and that's on the top of page 34 in the neighbourhood plan.
Thank you. Councillor Hutton.
I'm just slightly worried that there is a problem that we know is coming down the line very quickly now. We don't know anything more about it, but we know there is going to need to be some more housing. And somehow that's got to be told to people. And if that matters, somehow does that not have to be mentioned in the neighbourhood plan?
Councillor Mann.
So I did clarify what the question is that's going to be presented to the community. The question that's being presented to the community in the referendum is actually, do you want West Devon Borough Council to use the neighbourhood plan for Tavistock to help it decide planning applications for the neighbourhood area? That's the question. The question is not, do you want it to provide for all the housing for the future for Tavistock? It's not a question that is about, is this the final say on all housing need for the rest of time for Tavistock? It is simply, do you want to use the provisions that are in it to help decide planning applications in the neighbourhood area? So I think we've already decided this, and anything that you want to do with regard to allocations can be done as soon as the neighbourhood plan has been adopted, or before, depending on whether or not it's done by the local planning authority. But I don't think that there's anything that needs to be done in order to present that question to the public. It doesn't imply that there's no housing need. It simply says, do you want to apply the provisions that you created as a community to planning applications that come forward?
Thank you. Councillor Mrs Ewings and then Councillor Parker.
All I was going, excuse me, all I was going to add is that West Devon have challenged the figures that have been allocated, bearing in mind we do have Delmore National Park all over, West Devon. We do have many areas of natural landscape, formerly the AOMB, and we do have a World Heritage Site. So we are challenging the figures with the office of the MHCLG, and we have not received a reply yet, to my knowledge.
Councillor Parker.
Thank you, Councillor Ewings. That helps. Yeah, the question is, as Councillor Mann has said, there were two possible backgrounds to that question. One is there's no need to allocate housing sites, so don't worry about that. It's not an issue. The other is what we believe, I believe, is the truth, which is that there's a real problem coming up, and we may well need to allocate additional housing sites. Now, the suggestion I believe was made to West Devon was not a change to any policy in the neighbourhood plan. Nothing, no change to the substance, just a little addendum that says, since this neighbourhood plan was prepared, the government has increased substantially the allocations for West Devon. West Devon and Tavistock Town Council are basically on the case. Nothing more. That was what was suggested. It's too late to make any changes to the neighbourhood plan itself, but as it stands at the moment, the question that is being asked against, in my view, the wrong background.
Councillor Mann.
we've already had the debate, and I'm just wondering if we're on the minutes right now, or is that, I mean, are we in a substantive argument about this again?
My view is that we are not.
Can we shut down the conversation then?
Well, I've just got in front of me, just so that members are aware, a letter from an email from Graham Swiss to the clerk. And it said some of the things that you've already told us, it's not within the remit of West Devon Borough Council or ourselves to change the neighbourhood plan at this stage, as it's gone through examination. And we do have a date for referendum. It's going to be piggybacked on the county election on the 1st of May, and that's all in place. Certainly Graham Swiss's advice, and he has been the source of our formal advice, is that he recommends that no change be made to the neighbourhood plan. I fully accept you can debate about whether we're talking about a change or an addendum, but that's certainly his view. He makes the point that there is currently, this was on the 28th of February, no new specific housing requirement target for any settlement in West Devon. Provision to meet the borough-wide needs will be addressed by the successor to the joint local plan. And of course, none of us know when that's going to emerge, I presume. We do know that the neighbourhood development plan has to be aligned with the joint local plan. And that neighbourhood development plans do end up having to be revised, and no doubt this one will too in due course. My own view is that we should go ahead with the referendum. I think there are a lot of things in the neighbourhood plan that I am really keen to see in place, things like the design code, the protection of green spaces and so forth. And personally, I would not wish to do anything that discourages people voting for it. That's my personal view.
Mr. Mayor, just to be clear, I'm not making any proposal to change the neighbourhood plan. Everything I said was in response to questions asked of me.
Okay.
I simply asked for an update on progress,
Yep.
nothing more.
Thank you. And I believe we've had that, yes. And we'll now move on. Thank you. Are there any other matters arising from the minutes not otherwise covered in the agenda? Okay, thank you. In which case, public representations and questions, as far as I know, we've not received any of them. Then we move to items requiring a decision. 5, general finance, schedule of payments to consider and endorse. Does anyone have any questions? Okay, considered and endorsed. And B, budget monitoring report to consider and endorse. Any questions? I'm assuming you've not received anything.
No, sir.
Okay, happy? Then item 6, Budget and Policy Committee to consider the minutes of the meeting of the 4th of March. Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I rise to present the minutes of the meeting of the Budget and Policy Committee held on the 4th of March, and they read as follows. 324, apologies for absence. 325, confirmation of minutes. 326, declarations of interest. Then we have 4 recommendations for the Council to consider. First one, 327, Council Financial Policies and Procedures. The recommendation here, I'm just going to read out the bullets really. The rest of the detail is in your packs and available on the website for anybody that doesn't have the paperwork. So the committee considered the report of the Town Clerk, which is in Appendix 2, together with related financial policies and procedures for periodic review and adoption. So the recommendation is that, subject to any amendments as listed below, drafts or otherwise listed in the report, A, Tavistock Town Council financial regulations, B, Tavistock Town Council schedule of suppliers, C, Tavistock Town Council direct debit list, D, Tavistock Town Council internal control system, E. Tavistock Town Council Treasury Management Policy. F. Management Scheme of Basic Allowances and the Travelling and Subsistence Allowance Scheme. And finally, G. Tavistock Town Council Pension Discretions Policy.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Before we go on to vote on this, a couple of points. That you will all have received, hopefully, an email from the clerk in the last day or two, which relate to A, the Town Council financial regulations, and I'll call upon the clerk just to say a word about that, just so we're all clear. And then just to clarify, F is members' scheme of basic allowances, not management scheme.
Oh, sorry.
But that was a slip of the tongue, but
Yes.
just for anybody who might be watching, just for clarity. So, Town Clerk, could you just give us a quick brief on the changes to A, please?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's just to confirm that because of changes in terms of national procurement regulations that took place earlier this month, paragraphs 5.4, 5.7 and 5.11 of the financial regulations are amended as per my email, and those relate to contracts for the supply of goods, services or works, contracts estimated to be over £30,000 in value, including VAT, and a requirement that contracts must not be split to avoid compliance. They're very similar to what was there before, but they are not quite the same, and therefore we just need to incorporate those because those reflect the legislative regime as they currently are. And then if I could just add, Mr. Mayor, in relation to item E, members are also being asked to endorse items 1 and 2 in relation to the minimum operating reserve and the use of the CCLA cash account. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions or comments, please? Okay, in which case, the Deputy Mayor has moved the recommendation. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Parker, and all in favour, please show.
Carried.
Thank you.
So if I may move on, please, Mr. Mayor. We have item 328, internal audit, and item 329, indicative programme of meetings 2025 to 26. The recommendation here is that Tavistock Town Council endorse in principle and subject to formal consideration in due course the appended indicative calendar of meetings, which I think we all hopefully have stuck on our fridge for next year.
Okay, thank you. This is really to give a heads up of dates of meetings and events during the course of the next civic year. It is subject to change. It will be no doubt revisited at the pre-annual meeting and the annual meeting when it will be finalised, but it tends not to change very much once the first draft has been released. So the Deputy Mayor has moved the recommendation. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Mrs Ewings? No, you have a question?
I thought Councillor Poppy was going to ask it. How are you getting on with the investigations into electronic calendars, please?
Do we have an answer to that?
I'm sure as soon as the councils agree, it'll be in place. We will have something in place for when the calendar is actually adopted for the annual meeting itself. So, May, yes. Because we can't circulate it before council has formally adopted it. This is an adoption in principle. At the point where it is adopted, then you will have a electronic as well as a paper version.
I'll have done it manually by then.
It may change.
Councillor Munro?
Is it not worth trying that system with the current calendar of meetings, just so we know it works for the rest of this year?
Essentially, what we'll do is we'll send you an Outlook invitation for each of the meetings, so that you've got that. So we know that system works.
Okay, we're going slightly off-piste, I think. So if we could just come back to the recommendation, which has been moved and seconded, can we all vote in favour?
Carried.
Thank you.
Moving into the electronic world. Returning to the B&P minutes, item 330, Devolution Reorganisation Working Group. The recommendation here is that the Budget and Policy Committee and Council endorse, rather the Council endorses, the overall approach as set out in the report to the working group, and in particular the next steps as included in paragraph 3.1 together with the operating principles set out above, namely to seek to avoid the community losing what it already had and valued, whilst avoiding the ratepayer being required to pay for it twice, i.e. to avoid double taxation.
Okay, thank you. These are early days when it comes to reorganisation and devolution. We have formed a working group. It's a heads-up group thinking about what might come our way. At the moment, we don't know what will come our way. We don't yet know what the final reorganisation is going to be, unless you know something I don't.
I was just going to say, we've had a meeting this afternoon where we've informed all members of what our plan looks like. We know at the moment we are currently up to 11 plans for Devon. It's going to be a lovely job at the MHCLG for the ministers to get their head around. But the preferred model that West Devon will be sending in as part of Teignbridge, Torbay and South Hams is what we're calling the 145 model, Plymouth being one on existing boundaries. There's been much on the news about them straying into the South Hams and wanting to take 13 parishes. I believe that Rebecca Smith MP has set up a petition so that this can't happen for the residents of those 13 parishes. So none of us can put our signature to it or anything. It is literally only for those residents. That plan will be submitted on Friday morning, probably along with the other 10, maybe plus. So that's where we are at the moment, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you very much. And if I could just draw members' attention to the note that follows, it'll be the Town Clerk undertook to liaise with the Borough Council in connection with the above. He has done so, but there won't be any discussion with the Borough Council until at least the middle of May, until after the county elections, and a time for things to settle down a little bit. So it's still on the radar, but nothing's going to happen in the course of the next few weeks. So, yes, go on.
May I just confirm that actually some of the reasoning for that date, that meeting, is because potentially there could be a change of leadership at Devon, sure, which could take a very different view to the 11 plans plus that have been submitted and, you know, notify the government. So that is some of why we've asked to defer that meeting until we know a little bit more about what's going on after the elections.
Fine. Yes, thank you very much. Gosh, isn't it nice and simple? The recommendation has been moved. Do I have a seconder? Yeah, Councillor Poppy. And all in favour, please show.
Carried.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Moving on to item 331, communications and engagement, which is for information only. 332, Goose Fair fee setting meeting, but we do have a recommendation on this. The recommendation is that the proposal to increase park and ride fees as outlined above be endorsed, above being the details on the previous page.
Okay, thank you very much. If I could refer members to A and to B, picking up A, relating to charges for the park and ride sites. I believe the General Manager was interested in briefing us.
Lines?
In relation to little b, on the park and ride side, it didn't go through the schedule of fees and charges meeting. So we considered it budget and policy, and the main aim was to actually increase the park and ride fees by 50p per person to £3 from £2.50, or by £1 per car to £6. We've also had a follow-up meeting with the Lions on Monday, yesterday, And we are looking at taking a standardised approach in relation to all of our park and ride sites anyhow, which means that across all 3 sites we'll be doing it per person, basically £3. So a 50p increase per person.
Thank you very much.
I'm going to go technology again. Do we have a card machine for people to park?
Please sit down, yes.
Yay!
Anything else?
Do we vote on that?
All in favour, please show.
Carried.
And rounding off then in the with
Part one.
item part 1, yes, thank you. With item 333, car parking tariffs, which is also that is was brought forward at the discretion of the chairman for information only.
Okay, thank you very much indeed. Councillor Poppy.
There's a question on that. Do we know if there's going to be additional fees on top of those increases for using the app? The reason I mention it is Plymouth have just increased their fee, their parking charges, and now if you want to use the app in Plymouth, there is a further 20p charge. I know we're using a different system now.
That's certainly something I don't know the answer to.
For information, no. The only thing that there is a charge for is if you get an SMS reminder, and I think that's 20p or something from memory.
I think it might only be 10. Councillor Mrs Johnson, please.
Can we just reinforce that people will still be able to pay with cash in those machines? It's not just card, it's cash as well.
Okay, thank you very much. So I don't think that required us any action from us, did it? No. Okay. So we'll then move on and come back to budget and policy in part 2. So we move on to item 7, Development Management and Licensing Committee. Councillor Smith, please.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I rise to present the DMNL meeting held on Tuesday the 18th of February. 314, apologies for absence. 315, confirmation of minutes. 316, declaration of interest. 317, Dartmoor National Park Authority. 318, town planning issues. 319, general correspondence. 320, neighbourhood development plan. 321, urgent business brought forward at the discretion of the chairman. Planning applications, little a, planning decisions, and little b, new planning applications, and the recommendation is that the views of the town council as listed in Appendix B be passed to the local planning authority for consideration. I'll move that, Mr Mayor.
Thank you very much. Councillor Parker?
Seconded.
Thank you. And all in favour, please show.
Carried.
Thank you.
Okay.
Councillor Smith.
323, next meeting, and that's the end of that one. We also have another meeting, as we meet every 3 weeks, which does this occasionally. Minutes of the DMNL on Monday the 10th of March. 338, apologies for absence. 339, confirmation of minutes. 340, declaration of interest. 341, Dartmoor National Park Authority. 342, town planning issues. This is broken down into 2. The first one is an appeal notification for Westcroft in Mowens Close, which there is, we've got no further comment to make on that one. And on little b, conservation area appraisal addendum and management plan for Tavistock. And the committee considered the consultation draft. Mr Mayor, we have a number of items. There's 2 sections to this. The first one has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 sections. Do you want me to read them all out? They've obviously been sent out to all the members.
Indeed. I just wonder whether, for the benefit of anybody who might be watching, whether we should, I know they're a bit lengthy, but we should perhaps read out the recommendations, A to F.
Okay, we should do that with pleasure. It's recommended that Tavistock Town Council, one, not endorse the submitted draft consultation conservation area appraisal addendum and management plan for Tavistock as submitted, and draw attention in particular to the following. Little a, there being no reference to the emerging Tavistock neighbourhood development plan, despite there being references to the heritage assets in the town in that document. Little b, inconsistencies between the differing documents relating to the conservation area plan, which would cause difficulties for planning officers to determine which version to refer to. Little c, the extent of errors contained within the document as it currently stood, including misspelled or mislabelled photographs, incorrect text, etc. Little d, disappointment that the council had understood it would be afforded the opportunity to be involved in the pre-consultation drafting of the document to assist with local context and content, which had not happened. Little e, apologies, linking to the above that the town council had not been given sufficient time to properly review the document prior to the April deadline for consultation feedback. And finally, little f, more broadly, the matters as set out on the 2 items of correspondence reported to the meeting. Appendix 3 refers. The second section, Mr. Mayor, is that we invite a relevant officer from the local planning authority to attend a meeting of the Development Management and Licensing Committee to review with it the Conservation Area Appraisal Addendum and Management Plan prior to adoption. And it was noted that for the following reasons it was not possible to have confidence in the document in its current form. 2 items of correspondence setting out the views of a councillor and a local historian have been received and were reported. That's the end of that one. I move that, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you. That's a lot to take in. I think we can accept the recommendation. We also need to just be sure that we've got what we need in there for our feedback to the local planning authority. Councillor Parker, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First of all, I'm sorry I couldn't be at the meeting. I was a few miles away. I was the councillor that left the note. One of the things that concerned me, and thank you, Chairman, the recommendation covers all of the issues that I raised, bar one. I'd only had a chance to skip read the document, and I'm looking now at the town clerk. There seemed to be in the management plan a proposal that the listed buildings belonging to the town council be moved across to a historic buildings preservation trust. Now, I've set up and run a historic buildings preservation trust, and I find it astonishing that any authority could make that proposal without having spoken and agreed that it be published with the buildings owners. Has there been such a discussion?
I honestly can't remember if we've had one specific to the Historic Buildings Preservation Trust proposal. I certainly, and as you know, don't construe it in quite the way that you do. It's a reference to the fact that something could be done. It refers to the large number of listed buildings in the town and the fact that the town council is a significant landowner. Certainly, because of some of the matters which arose, I think it was in 2009 when the previous management plan and appraisal were considered. I've made it very clear in officer level discussions that we would not expect there to be anything within the document which was a formal commitment for the town council to be expected to make, given to us, if you like, from on high by the borough council without there having been consideration of that and discussion and agreement beforehand. And my view is that what they have produced is absolutely consistent with that. They have included a suggestion, and I think it is no more than a suggestion in terms of what its framing is, and that's what it's to me, what its true reading is, and I don't believe that we are committing as a council to anything other than to have an open mind to that proposal if it comes forward, whether it is for all the listed buildings in the town, whether it is for some of the listed buildings in the town, whether it's for some of the town council listed buildings. But we are not committing to a course of action, and certainly I can say that at this moment in time, unless there were to be a compelling reason to do so, I do not see that there is a business case for the council to actually undertake that particular course of action.
Councillor Parker.
Thank you. I'd rather hoped you were taking that approach, Town Clerk. Yeah, in that case, I agree that it does specifically refer to listed buildings of the Town Council. Could we frame an additional resolution then along those lines that the Town Council does not commit itself to going along with that proposal? I'm sure you can form the words for that, Town Clerk.
If I may, and if the chamber is agreeable, we in making the response, we can draw attention to that. So the response is this, and then we can say, and we will also draw your attention to the fact that in making these comments, we in no way endorse or approve the potential that the town council properties form part of a buildings preservation trust at this time.
That's fine.
Thank you.
Could we go further and suggest that there is no place in the addendum for a hypothetical suggestion of something that could be done which has not been discussed with the party that would be most affected by it, and that it should be deleted from it completely?
Shall we, Mr. Mayor, perhaps we just suggest that the words town council be removed from that and it be reformatted so that it could be about listed buildings of the town. And then it would be a matter for all, and draw attention to the fact that it would then be a matter for consultation with all relevant landowners as to whether or not that was a viable option.
Mr. Mayor, I mean, the thing is, historic building preservation trusts are set up to rescue and prevent the destruction of listed buildings and other important buildings at risk. I must admit, the first thing that occurred to me when I saw that was the word Spring Hill, which of course aren't buildings owned by the town council but by the borough council itself. I mean, I would certainly go along with the mayor that a hypothetical proposal such as this has no place in the conservation area management plan unless it has the endorsement of those who would be handing over the buildings in the first place.
Thank you very much. I think we have a way forward, and I'm sure the clerk will formulate a suitable response. Councillor Mrs Ewings.
While we've been discussing that, I've already sent it up to West Devon.
It's like having the last straight out to God.
Right, Councillor Smith, I think we've got to 343, haven't we?
343 sounds like a good place. General correspondence, 344, Tavistock Neighbourhood Development Plan, 345, urgent business brought forward at the discretion of the chairman, 346, planning applications, little a, planning decisions, little b, new planning applications, and the recommendation is that the views of the town council as listed in Appendix B be passed to the local planning authority for consideration. Move that, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you. So the recommendation is moved. Seconded, Councillor Parker?
Seconded.
All in favour, please show.
Carried.
Thank you.
347, next meeting, and as it's on a special day, the next meeting will be on April the 1st, on there at 6:30 in the chamber. I would say the majority, we trust, will be there at 6 o'clock because we have to consider the contract for what I still call the skate park, the multi-use area down in town.
Multi-wheel and sports facilities.
Okay.
You are all invited. you've had an invitation to that, and if you can stay on for the development planning, we would be greatly pleased. Thank you. Thanks, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thanks very much. You've preempted item 8, special meeting of council, where we are asked to endorse the arrangement of a special meeting of council on Tuesday, the 1st of April at 6 p.m, preceding the DMNL meeting, to consider tenders in connection with the proposed multi-use wheeled sports area. My understanding that things have moved on a little bit. Is that correct, General Manager?
They moved on slightly and took a couple of steps back today. We will be in a position to, or I will be in a position to present a report some stage to go out in the post next week to be considered for the council meeting on the 1st of April. We have had 3 tender returns, as I mentioned in the General Manager's report, all compliant tenders, of reasonable standard, and we're currently undertaking the due diligence, which the next stage will be early part of next week.
Thank you very much indeed. Okay. Let's move on. So, items circulated for information only, service reports. First one is the General Manager's report. Does anyone have any comments to make, please? Any questions? No? In which case, we'll move on to 9(2), Pannier Market report. Oh, Councillor Moody, please.
Thank you very much. I'm really pleased to acknowledge the hard work that's gone into the Pannier Market, and the award that has been won. I think it's absolutely incredible. I just wanted to know that, do we have it's the old story that, you know, when you're doing something well, shout it from the top of the hill. Are we going to use the logo or any sort of branding on our letterheads, market letterheads, or council letterheads in future to continue to promote? Thank you.
Do you have a response to that?
Yes, the Market Reeve has already said that he will be using it in terms of the promotion of the Pannier Market and on Pannier Market correspondence. So it will be being figured there, and it will be something which we would wish to continue to celebrate.
Is the graphic at the top of the report an indication of the sort of thing that we might be using?
The graphic at the top of the report I allowed to snuck through because it doesn't actually meet website accessibility guidelines, but I felt that in the circumstances it would seem churlish to say to the Market Reeve, you can't have that, you can't have that, but it would form the basis for non-web-based communications, yes.
Okay, thank you. So next is the Works Department. Oh, yes?
Sorry. Years ago, we used to have a footer for when we were the best value, best market town, on our note paper. So could we have it as a footer again for a year or so? The other one was there for years, but you know, if we could keep it relevant.
There's no reason why we couldn't have it as a footer for correspondence. Unfortunately, the website doesn't. Sorry. In terms of the website accessibility regulations as revised, 2.1AA, that's really problematic in terms of what it is. Because as you know, my reports always used to have lots of footers, and they don't anymore. Well, mostly they don't. The General Manager's got a comment, Mr. Mayor.
I'm sure we can come up with some options. I think it's just we need to have a think properly around whether we want to remove, for example, the main footer we're using at the moment, which references the council as a or the Tavistock as a World Heritage Site. So it's trying to get the balance of, are you looking at Tavistock in the round, or are we focusing on the Pannier Market? And maybe we just need a bit of a blended approach with the kind of footers and stuff we do. Just a thought.
I think we'll move on swiftly to the Works Management Report, and how nice to read of so many trees being planted. Any questions on the Works Department? Councillor Moody.
I'm glad to hear about the new bin storage. I'm just wondering, we're all supposed to be going green. Are we making any efforts to sort of monitor what's being put in the bins and any way that we can help reduce our waste? Because this is one of the biggest things about waste. Waste reduction is one of the most important things. And I'm just wondering whether, as a council, we can nudge people in a certain direction.
General Manager?
We have, over the past, had quite a detailed review of our waste management, and that has bled into the sustainability sort of like reports that we've undertaken as well. In relation to the pannier market itself, we do regularly send out memos to encourage shop owners and traders to think about those kind of aspects. We do have the recycling element in relation to the cardboard crusher in the pannier market, the cardboard compactor, which obviously is taken away for free as part of the recycling sort of like activities. We have looked at other aspects